What are your best? This customer is totally trying to screw us over stories. I'm at work, and we just received an obviously fraudulent order, which got me thinking, what are some hilarious situations you've been in? A customer said he never received a book, so we checked UPS and it was shipped to a different address. So we called UPS saying, what the duck, and they said the customer had called them to change the shipping address, and that they had a digital copy of his signature. He denied it was his signature, and denied he ever called to change the shipping address, and that he had never even heard of that address. He claimed that we changed the address and we were trying to screw him over. I did some investigating, and found out the new address it shipped to was a business under his name. So I called him up during his business hours, basically saying, aha, busted. He then called the police on me saying we were harassing him, so my boss had a talk with the cops, and the cops found out he did in fact receive the books. Ah, good times. Used to work at a bookstore, and for a while I was the guy who covered breaks for the people in the music and movies area. One day, a woman, in her late-ish 20s, clearly someone who works out, fake tans, fake nails, you know the type, comes to the store with an open DVD and asks the guy at the front desk to do a return. He asks why she wants to return it. She says she didn't like it. He then explains that we don't accept returns on open DVDs, shows her the sign saying as much, and says if it isn't defective there isn't anything he can do. She gets angry, and decides to try to come upstairs to try getting the refund from me. The front desk guy calls me, lets me know what's going on. I see her get off the escalator, and watch her break the case for the DVD which she had bought. She approaches, and I calmly explain to her why we can't accept a refund because she simply didn't like the DVD. She tells me she wants to return it because it's broken, so I tell her I witnessed her break it on her walk over to me. She goes apeshit at me and demands to see my supervisor. At this point the person who was on break returns, and is sort of my supervisor, so I told her the situation and let her try to explain the exact same thing. The woman is now furious and demands to speak to manager. Manager walks over, we explain the situation to him, and expect him to be the final, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. Instead, the pansy manager took one look at the woman and said, well, just this once let's make an exception. One of my friends was a purser on a cruise ship, and the lengths people would go to get a free room upgrade were astonishing. The best story was a complaint from the passengers about a water leak in their room that had ruined some of their belongings. They wanted an upgrade to first class, and announced they would be suing for the full replacement costs of all of their suitcases and the stuff that was in them, cameras, laptop, etc. My friend dispatched maintenance right away. Water leaks on a ship are kind of a big deal, and they were at the room within a minute of receiving the complaint, and they found that the passengers had left ice all around the cabin. Because of how fast maintenance got there, it wasn't fully melted even in the Caribbean heat, and the window was left open. Purser told the passengers they would not be upgraded, would not be moved, they had to sleep in wet beds that night, and would be charged for the cleaning costs of the room when they reached port. Back when I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, a customer used to come in and ask for a cup of water. He would then mix in lemon juice. We had packets of this because some people like lemon with tea, sugar, and salt to create some free ghetto lemonade. Technically he was screwing us over, but I thought it was hilarious so I didn't hassle him or anything. You can do this type of thing at McDonald's too. Ask for a cup of hot water, add ketchup, and you've got yourself a nice tomato soup. I just vomited a little. To be fair, I'm not sure if this lady was trying to scam us, or just was being a total bitch. I worked in the front office of the rec center in my hometown for years. It was one of those jobs where I did a bit of everything, but one of them was I could sell day passes to the beach for non-residents. There are a few restrictions with them. They can only be sold to residents at $10 each. They're so residents can give them to visiting friends etc. They can only have 5 per year, and I have to write the date that they're valid for. I had a woman who went on and on saying how writing the date was ridiculous. I finally compromised with her, and said that if it rained or something and she didn't fill out the vehicle information, we could exchange them for another day, but apparently that wasn't good enough for her. It just led to one of the most satisfying things exchanges ever. I mean, who are you? I'm best friends with former beach manager, and she said that this would be fine. Me, well, I'm sorry, she's out of town and hasn't told me anything, so this is the best I can do. Did you just start here? I don't think you know how this works. Me, I've worked here for about 4.5 years. This has been the policy for the last 3 years. Oh. I think it just changed. Me, She ended up taking them, but my manager's office is right behind me, so that she could hear this whole thing. After the woman left, I just leaned into her doorway looking amazed, and she said something like, I had to plug my ears, otherwise I was going to come out and smack that woman. It is amazing how patient you are. TLDR, I typed up a TLDR and then realized this is just a shitty story, but I spent way too much time typing it. I worked in an insurance call center, and a woman phoned up to say she had spilt bleach on her carpet and needed to replace it. She had the right cover. It was policy to send an inspector from a cleaning company round to make sure it was a total loss, and this woman happened to live very close to the nearest location. I told her someone would be around to inspect her carpet ASAP, and that the depot was 5 minutes away, then started taking details about the accident. She was not happy with all this, and when I asked her when it happened, she got all blustered and eventually said, it hasn't happened yet. Idiot. So, she admitted to insurance fraud? Yup. Pass on to boss. Go back to answering calls. Always wondered what happened to her. Working fast food one summer. A customer comes up and looks at my name tag, then makes some kind of rhyme out of my name. It was bad sitcom level acting. Anyway, he makes a small order, then asks for change for a 20. I was already on alert because of his stupid name thing, so I was paying extra attention to what he was doing. He handed me the money for the order, but kept the 20. Watched me count of the change, then pulled back and asked for it in 5s. When I had the change in my hand, I held out my other hand for the 20. He said he had already given me the money. I just gave him a blank stare and said, no. He backtracked and was like, I'll just go get change from the gas station across the street. Right. I used to work at a Reebok outlet store. Our return policy was the same as a lot of places. Receipt means you can get money back. No receipt means you can only get store credit/exchange. We had a guy that would come in every week and exchange 25 polo shirts in all different sizes/styles. It was always 25 shirts, and nobody ever seemed to remember him carrying the return shirts into the store. He was pretty clearly just walking into the store, grabbing 50 shirts, and exchanging 25 of them for the other 25. I don't know why he needed that many shirts, maybe he was selling them or something. Anyway, I make up my mind that I am not going to let this guy get away with it anymore. I didn't even care that he was stealing from the store, I just didn't like that he thought he was being clever. So the next time he came in, I watched him like a hawk. I saw him do exactly what we thought, just grabbing 50 shirts and walking up to the counter to exchange half of them for the other half. Except before he could say anything, I said, wow, buying a lot of shirts today. Or something like that. He said, no, I'm actually returning these for these. I just replied, so, you can't return shirts that you haven't bought yet. He got all indignant and offensive, but obviously realized he was caught. So he left the shirts on the counter and started to leave the store, saying, you just lost yourself a long-time customer. I told him to stop, and said completely straight-faced, sir, we have cameras in the store and in the parking lot, so we know you were stealing, and we know your license plate number. I also have your name and address from the ID you gave me for the returns. You're going to buy all 50 of those shirts or I'm going to call the police. He stopped, hastily walked over, bought all 50 shirts, left the store and never came back. And no, we did not have any security cameras. I used to work as a pharmacy technician at Walmart while I was in undergrad. Patient comes in with a script for 100 oxycodone/APAP tabs. Obviously forged, because it's almost never written for amounts that large, but we called the prescribing physician just to make sure. The doctor's response was, "Duck no. Patient had outpatient surgery. I prescribed 10 for recovery. Let's go ahead and change that to APAP, acetaminophen, 600 mg. TLDR, patient added a 0 to his narcotic RX. Doctor changes RX to Tylenol. Police take patient away." I used to work for a furniture company in the mid-90s. One day, we got a memo that there was a former co-worker who was using stolen cards to do in-store pickups or deliveries to fake addresses, like an apartment, but they would pick up the furniture in the apartment lobby, claiming the elevator was broken or something. The FBI was getting involved because it was in the amounts of thousands of dollars across state lines. A few days later, I got a call. A big order. The kind of order that would blow over quota and give me a bonus. "Can you deliver this to New Jersey?" "Sure." I took down the credit card info. Then I asked for a callback number so I could relate the shipping info. They hesitated. I said MasterCard required it. "Let me give you a Visa then." "Aha. Okay." I told that info, and then said, "Oh. I forgot. Visa does too. I'll call you back," they said. So I called the home office and told them I think it was those guys. The MO checked out, and they said if they call back, try and get an American Express card, and then don't ask for a callback number. Just set up delivery. And hours later, they called back. Got my assistant, and I told her to just take the order. When it was completed, she had an American Express card order for some ungodly amount. I called the home office, and they arranged a sting with the FBI. Later, the drivers told me what had happened. They had to make a rendezvous point where they loaded a bunch of armed agents into the truck. Then, once the woman signed the bill of landing, the FBI goon squad jumped from the truck and arrested her and 4 accomplices without much resistance. Later, MasterCard, Visa, and American Express gave me reward checks for recovering stolen cards. Sweet. I worked at a restaurant a few years back. Another server used to keep all her tips in a guest check holder. One day she dropped the bill on a customer's table, but accidentally gave them the holder with all her money in it. Instead of being honest, the couple who had dinner took her cash and left. And they had the balls to come back about 2 months later. The owner told them she knew what they did, and asked them to leave. Never saw them again. I used to work at a costume shop, and apparently for about a year before I started working there, an elderly lady had been coming into the store, buying wigs, using them, and trashing them out pretty much, for about a week, then returning them for a store credit and getting a new one. The owner was a big softie, so for whatever dumb reason, he had been letting her get away with it. The first time she came in to do this scam, I was alone in the store and didn't know about this agreement/scam, and flat out refused her, and told her to come back when the owner was going to be in the store. That weekend I went to my family reunion, and lo and behold it turns out the scammer was my great aunt. After talking to a few relatives, it was made clear to her she was no longer allowed to scam the store I worked at anymore. Working at Sears in electronics. Lady tries to return a video camera. I open the box to check the merchandise, breaking the seal. She is visibly not happy about that, and asks what I'm doing. I continue to open it. It's a camera several years old in a new box. She pretends to be surprised. Man brings in Casio keyboard box. Proclaims he bought it from one of my associates. We do not sell keyboards. I explain that to him. He is angry and asks where he got it from then. I say, okay. I start to open it. He is very mad. I keep going. He runs out of the store. It's 3 pieces of plywood. I once went with my grandma to return a pair of pants. She couldn't find her receipt, and the tag was off, so we were just going to get store credit for whatever amount we could. When we brought the pants to the store clerk, the clerk told us that they didn't carry those pants. Now my grandma is not one to back down. So I stood there and watched her tell this long story about how she bought them a couple weeks ago for such and such event, but ended up not going to the event because her friend came into town, etc. It was like a Greek tragedy starring pants, and the whole thing took about 20 minutes to tell. Eventually the store clerk gave up and credited my grandma. I didn't say a word throughout the entire ordeal because I was a bit embarrassed, and we walked back to the car in silence. We get in the car. My grandma turns to me and said, "I realized after about 5 minutes that I hadn't bought the pants there, but I'll be damned if I'm going to be the crazy old lady who forgets where she buys pants." Old people. I used to work for The Source, Radio Shack in the US, in a very low traffic area, so we wouldn't get any people who come in just to browse, like at the malls. People came in with an idea of what they wanted, and it was up to me to get it for them. So I'm alone, manager is on lunch, and this old frail lady walks in. I ask if I can help her, and she gives me a scoff and rolls her eyes. I need a cell phone. I help her out as much as I can. I tell her that pay as you go are the cheapest rates, and have no contracts to bind you. She seems pleased, but decides to purchase a Rogers phone on a 2-year contract. Whatever, more commission for me. 3 weeks later she comes in unhappy and asks to return the phone. I explained to her that it would cost around $400 to cancel the plan she has created, and that she is too late for a refund. 15 days maximum. She gets pissed and storms out. 2 months later she comes in, attitude up the wazoo, telling me that I sold her a busted phone, and she wants all of her money back. I was alone again, so I asked her to give me her phone so I can look at it. I present my hand, and she reaches over to hand it to me. At the last second she moves her hand a bit to the side, and drops the phone on the tips of my fingers, where it then falls to the floor. She goes apeshit. "You broke my phone, I want my money back and I want a new phone, blah blah blah." I try to explain to her that a Nokia 3100-esque phone will not break from a simple fall. You would need to throw the phone into the fire of Mount Doom to destroy it. She doesn't agree and starts yapping. I tell her that even if her phone was an expensive smartphone like my BlackBerry, it would take the fall and still work. So drop it, she says. I ask if I drop my phone from the same height, and it still works if she will leave, and she agrees. Now, I am not going to drop my brand new BlackBerry I purchased just weeks before, to some dumb old coot that is sad because she didn't listen to my first advice. I think quick on my feet, and remember the stash of fake plastic phones right under the counter. I grab one that looks just like my phone, and kamehameha that shit right into the floor, where it shatters in 100 pieces. We both stare at the pieces for a sec, and she is astonished. She fumbles with her things and takes her phone and never comes back. I work at Olive Garden, and we have that oh so famous soup and salad deal. Well, I had a party of 4 come in, all about 16 or 17, all order soup and salad. Considering they're my only table, I, fairly quickly, bring out drinks and their soup and salad. They all thank me and start eating. Before I walk away, they ask if they can see my manager. I assume they want to put in a good word. My manager comes over. Let me explain him really quick. He is from some Pacific Island country, and has a very hard time understanding people when they talk too quickly, let alone how the company is run and how to even use the computers to put in orders. No, I don't know how he got this job. Well anyway, my manager comes over and asks the table what he can do for them. Very little, obviously. They start complaining that I am an awful server, and have yet to bring out any of their food. According to them, they never got anything, drinks or food. Now, it's quite obvious that they got everything they ordered. They demand that everything get taken off the bill. Now my manager isn't obviously going to argue with them, because he won't understand what he's arguing about, so he just gives them all free food, free dessert, and a $25 gift card. And I get written up for customer complaints. But it doesn't end there. They stiff me, yes. But one of the 17 or so slut bags has the audacity to leave me her phone number with her name. I formulate my plan. I call her well after my shift with them, 2 days actually. After a few rings it goes to voicemail once, with the typical, "Hello, you've reached the Sprint voicemail box of, perfect." She calls back. I start, "Hello, I am calling in regards to your most recent bill with Sprint." She instantly calls for her mother, muhahaha. Her mother picks up. "Hello, sorry to call under such harsh pretenses, but your daughter recently came into an Olive Garden I work at, nearly gets me fired, and then stiffs me. I go on to tell my story. She actually takes my side and makes sure everything is taken care of. The next day I work I receive a letter with $50 and a handwritten note saying how her daughter will be selling her new car, never seeing the light of day, blah blah blah. Apparently she does this to a lot of servers and a lot of different restaurants, according to her mother, who recently found out. TLDR, some snotty little teenager and her bishy friends got a bunch of free food and almost got me fired, stiffed me, left me her number. I talked to her mother instead, got $50 and peace of mind knowing that girl is ducked. Working at Domino's. A woman calls in and wants her money back. She said the pizzas, 4, were burnt. Technically possible, but highly unlikely. Also, she ate the pizzas anyway. We thought she was joking, but she wasn't, and the manager refunded her order. She worked at that Domino's, it was just her night off. She was let go a couple of days later.